Wel, yn y gyfeillion yn am da, diolch yn fawr, wrth gwrs am y cyfle I fod yma, diolch yn fawr I chi gyd am rando. In a session in which I'm going to focus on the future of the Welsh language, I thought I ought at least to begin with a few words in the oldest living language in the continent of Europe. And to begin as well by putting that survival into a global context. Because what those who study these matters tell us is that a language is lost from the face of this globe every 2 weeks, when the last remaining speakers of it no longer survive. And in that sense, it seems to me that the survival of Celtic languages is a matter both of celebration and indeed of amazement. Not only are they the oldest languages to be spoken in Europe, but each one of them sits cheek by jowl with another global language as its closest neighbour, whether that is the Catalan or the Basque language in Spain, with Spanish alongside them, whether it's the Breton language with French alongside it, whether it's Welsh, with the English language surrounding us every single day. The survival of our languages is a story which I think can amaze the world. But our aim in Wales is not simply that the language should survive, but of course that it should thrive. That it is not just there to sum up our history, but to be an integral part of our future. And in that, we are very keen indeed to play our part with others in those international networks which allow us to share experience, to pool ideas, to be part, for example, of a network to promote linguistic diversity close to home, and also to be part of those essential bilateral relationships that allow us to come together in that common cause. Our oldest relationship, going back many, many centuries, is that between Wales and Brittany, members of the same Celtic family in linguistic terms, and over the last 20 years, committed through memorandums of understanding signed between us to work together in the promotion of our languages. And that is very much, I think, a characteristic of the contemporary way in which we work, whether that is with our Irish colleagues, or whether, as just in the last couple of weeks, we were able to sign an agreement with our colleagues in Cornwall, the third of that family of Celtic languages, and to celebrate the fact that 10,000 children in Cornwall today learn the Cornish language in schools. In that way, I think we have succeeded, despite the many challenges in our way, in reversing the stereotypes that were true of the Welsh language in the period when I was growing up. Then you would have been told, as a matter of simple received wisdom, that Welsh was a dying language, that it was a language that was spoken primarily in rural communities, and that its usage was concentrated amongst older parts of our population. Today, every single one of those stereotypes is no longer true. The Welsh language is a growing language. It is spoken more in urban areas than in rural communities. The greatest number of people who speak Welsh today are to be found in Cardiff, our largest and our capital city. And the growth in the language comes not amongst older people, but amongst those young people who are immersed in our education system. At the heart of the way in which we have been able to make that progress is that we run our approach to the Welsh language under the slogan that Welsh belongs to us all. Mae Cymraeg yn perthyn I ni gyd, whether you speak the language or whether you do not. The Welsh language, if you live in Wales, is part of that shared identity. Not in a way that uses identity as a way of excluding people, but as a way of embracing all of those who believe that language tells you something unique about that part of the globe that we are lucky enough to occupy. And in that ambition to make sure that the language is part of our future and that it goes on building on its success, we have two key ambitions for the next quarter of a century. By the time we get to 2050, we want to see 1 million speakers of Welsh in Wales. And we want to double the use of that language in everyday life. No point in having 1 million speakers if there are no opportunities for those people to use the language that they now acquire. How are we doing that? Well, in terms of creating that 1 million speakers, we're doing all the things that I expect you would expect us to do. We focus very much on education. The strongest growth in education in Wales is amongst young people who go to have the whole of their education through the medium of Welsh. From the minute they arrive at the nursery door, right through, for those who choose it, to people who write PhD theses in the Welsh language. Thousands more children today receive the whole of their education through the medium of Welsh, and 8 out of 10 of those in a city like Cardiff come from homes where no Welsh is spoken. They learn the language, they learn to use the language through the investment in our education service. And of course, because many parents want to be able to into the use of the Welsh language. And we focus as well upon language transmission. Those families where Welsh is used every single day, in the home, as part of everyday life, we want to make sure that those parents have every opportunity and every incentive to pass that language on to their children for the future. And because we are a country surrounded, as I said, by the English language, where you can hear English every single day in every aspect of your lives, we have to act in a way that protects those spaces where people can use the language for everything that they want to do. So at a very local level, we create spaces, breathing spaces, they are sometimes called, where people know that they will be able to use the Welsh language in a way unchallenged by the presence of that dominant language alongside you. And that is part, of course, of the way in which we aim to double the use of the language in future as well. I just want to give you very briefly 3 or 4 examples of the way in which that is being done. First of all, I believe it's important that as a government, we live out that ambition ourselves. Every cabinet meeting that I conduct all the formalities of that meeting through the medium of Welsh. And even people who don't have that much Welsh very quickly become used to the fact that as you make your way through an agenda and call people to speak, you can do that using the Welsh language, and people are able to follow it and respond to it absolutely easily once you've established that basic way of working, finding new ways in which the language can be used. We recently held the British-Irish Council in Cardiff. It's a meeting of governments in Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, and others too. It meets twice a year. Wales leads the strand of work of the Council on lesser used languages. And in the plenary session, the main session of that very important council, 6 different languages were spoken. So, of course, Welsh was spoken throughout. The Irish Prime Minister, the Taoiseach, made all his contributions in the Irish language. The Minister from the Scottish Government spoke in Scots, Gaelic. Our colleagues from the Isle of Man contributed in the Manx language. Our colleagues from the island of Jersey contributed in Gembraiz, an ancient language, drawing on the French history of that island. And of course, there was English spoken as well. But in living out our ambition to create more opportunities, it was a vivid illustration of the way of the linguistic diversity that exists even within that one council. And very importantly for us, in making sure that the language does indeed include all those people who are characteristic of Wales today in the 21st century, we have people of all backgrounds who enter education and then go on to become Welsh speakers. The second person in charge of the Muslim Council for Wales, a remarkable young woman, conducts all her contributions in public spaces in the medium of the Welsh language, demonstrating, as I said, that Welsh truly belongs to us all. And if we are to succeed in making Welsh a living language for those young people who acquire their linguistic capacity in schools, we have to make sure there are ways in which they can use the language outside the school gate as well. Our Welsh language youth movement, the yezh, leads the way in making sure that there are opportunities for those young people to use the language, not just in the formalities of the classroom, but in the way that young people come together to enjoy themselves and to play. They use sport as a very important focus for that. Wales is a sport-mad nation, and the ability to use the Welsh language when you're playing football, when you're playing rugby, when you're playing cricket, whatever it might be, is a really important part of our ambition to double the use of that language, as it is in festivals of the sort that we will be involved in here today. And finally, in this way of extending the language and making sure that it's available in contemporary conditions, it's absolutely essential that those great global companies who dominate our lives when we pick up our phone or we carry out a Zoom meeting or whatever it might be, that the digital world is equally available in Welsh as in English. And we've had some significant success in very recent times in being able to conduct meetings on the screen in whichever language you choose. You can contribute in Welsh, contribute in English, and the translation facilities are there, but we've not finished that journey. If I am sending a message on my telephone, a text message, I can speak into it and it will appear in English on the screen. It doesn't yet have the ability to do that in the Welsh language. And if we can't create that and create it quickly, then young people whose lives are lived out on their phone will find themselves obliged to use English when they would prefer and have the capacity to use the Welsh language instead. That challenge faces all of the languages which are shared between the Celtic nations and regions. A challenge of making sure that as we grow the numbers of people who can speak the language, we increase the opportunities for its daily use. And that takes me back to where I began, finally. I said to you that the success we've had in Wales has been by making sure that the language belongs to everybody. But the future of the language also depends upon a recognition that its fate lies in the hands of every single Welsh citizen. The language will not survive if we think of it as the responsibility of somebody else. As well as belonging to us all, it is a responsibility of each one of us. We're fortunate in Wales that we have the bulk of the population committed to that future, and by working together and making sure that we think of the language in that contemporary sense, looking to the future, making it sure of its relevance in contemporary conditions, then the fate of the language, tynged ar iaith, can be one of continuing success. Diolch yn fawr, thank you very much indeed.